영어 동화 세상 리틀팍스
Photo Travels Ancient Egypt Episode 1 The Secret in the Attic.
The house looked and smelled very old. 11-year-old Vinny didn't want to live there. Neither did his 9-year-old sister Mandy. But the children had no choice. 6 months ago, their parents gave them some shocking news.
We're moving to the country,
they announced.
Why?
Asked the startled children.
You need the fresh air,
Mom explained.
You're going to love the new house.
Added Dad.
But what about our friends?
Vinny and Mandy cried.
You'll make new ones,
Said Mom firmly. The family arrived at their new house. It was actually 100 years old. It needed many repairs. Mom and Dad got busy painting the outside of the house. Vinny and Mandy had lots to do inside.
Vinny?
Mandy walked into the living room. Her brother was tearing old wallpaper from the wall.
What?
He asked, annoyed at everything. Vinny threw down the scraper.
This is a stupid house.
Well, complaining isn't going to help,
Said Mandy. Vinny shrugged.
Dad said I have to clean out the attic.
Mandy continued.
But I'm scared to go up there by myself.
You aren't afraid of ghosts, are you?
Vinny grabbed an old sheet from one of the chairs. He pulled it over his head. Flinging his arms in the air, he made scary noises. Grinning, Mandy pulled the sheet off Vinny's head.
Will you come with me or not?
She asked. Vinny led the way upstairs. In the dusty attic, they were surrounded by books, maps, and cobwebs. Vinny did not like spiders. He brushed a sticky spider web off his face. Mandy was more interested in the books. They were everywhere, in boxes, on shelves, and in tall piles against the wall.
Oh!
She said, clapping her hands excitedly. Mandy loved to read.
Do we know anything about the owner of this house?
She asked. Vinny shook his head.
Maybe he was a writer.
Then he looked around for creepy spiders. Mandy read the book titles in one box. All the books were about history or traveling.
Well, he must have loved history,
she said. Vinny walked over to a shelf of books.
Mandy, look at this.
Vinny called excitedly. He held a thick, dusty green album. The children flipped through the first few pages. Each page had one black and white photograph. Something was written below each photo.
I wonder if this is the owner.
Mandy pointed to the elderly man in one of the pictures. He had a friendly smile. Vinny turned to the first page.
Hey, Mandy,
Said Vinny.
look at this one. He's in a boat and...
Vinny looked closer.
Cool. Here's a pyramid and an eagle in the background. He must be in Egypt.
Vinny, this picture is
Mandy paused.
different.
What do you mean?
Asked Vinny. Mandy rubbed her eyes and stared at the photo again.
Look at the pyramid.
She whispered.
It's glowing.
Photo Travels Ancient Egypt Episode 2 The Photo Journals
Vinny slammed the album shut.
Did you see that?
He asked, his voice shaking.
That pyramid was glowing.
Mandy nodded slowly.
Should we tell Mom and Dad?
Vinny shook his head.
No, this is our little secret.
There was something written below the picture.
Mandy said.
Maybe we should read it.
Vinny nodded and opened the album. The handwriting was small and neat.
August 24, my first photo travels.
Mandy read aloud.
Photo travels? What's that?
Vinny interrupted. Mandy continued to read.
I found this photo album in my uncle's attic. It didn't look special on the outside, but once I opened it, it changed my life forever.
So he found the album in an attic too?
Said Vinny. Nodding, Mandy continued to read.
People say I'm crazy. Maybe I am. But I have traveled to the past. I even have proof. This photo album.
Travel to the past? Like in a time machine?
Vinny asked excitedly.
Go on reading.
My first travel to Egypt.
Mandy held her breath.
A glowing pyramid called to me.
Mandy, do you think it's calling to us too?
Vinny asked. He pulled the photo out of the album. Mandy continued.
When I looked into the light, my adventures began.
But how did he go back in time? And why did the pictures glow?
Vinny stared at the photo.
Vinny, maybe we should forget all this.
Mandy looked at her watch. It was almost noon.
Let's just go and have lunch.
But Vinny did not hear her. His eyes were fixed on the photograph.
Vinny, you're scaring me. Stop it!
She cried.
But what if it's real? What if we really could go back in time?
Vinny said in a dreamy voice.
I'm going downstairs.
Mandy insisted. Vinny grabbed her arm.
Don't you want an adventure, Mandy?
He said excitedly.
I do, but I'm also scared.
She said honestly.
How do we travel to the past? And I'm worried about how we'd get back home again.
Mandy!
Her brother suddenly shouted.
The pyramid is getting brighter!
Sure enough, the pyramid was glowing with a bright yellow light. Now the children really couldn't take their eyes off the light.
When I looked into the light, my adventures began.
Vinny repeated the words written in the album. The heat from the light felt hot against their faces. It forced them to close their eyes. Now they could see the pyramid in their minds. It seemed to be coming closer.
Vinny, I'm scared,
cried Mandy. Suddenly, the children felt their feet lift off the ground. Vinny grabbed his sister's hand and shouted.
Hang on, Mandy!
He held her hand tightly.
I've changed my mind. I don't want to do this,
Vinny cried. He tried to open his eyes but couldn't. It was too bright.
Mandy!
Vinny!
Still holding on to each other, the children screamed. They began to fall down a deep, dark tunnel.
Photo Travels, Ancient Egypt. Episode 3, An Egyptian Friend.
Without warning, the children landed at the bottom of a tunnel with a loud thud.
Ouch!
Shouted Vinny.
Oomph!
Cried Mandy. They opened their eyes. The bright light was gone. The darkness of the tunnel was gone too. They both lay on the ground not far from each other.
Are you okay?
Vinny called to his sister. They had landed on the bank of a long river. They could see ducks and geese flying by. Men with nets and spears were fishing from boats and from land.
Mandy?
Vinny called to her again. As he got up and moved closer to Mandy, Vinny could see why she didn't answer. Standing in front of her was a boy about Vinny's age. He was dark and slender.
Are you the gods of the Nile?
The boy asked, falling to his knees.
The Nile?
Vinny questioned. Then he realized where they were.
We're in Egypt.
He shouted at Mandy.
Please don't hurt me.
The strange boy cried, his voice shaking.
No, we're not gods.
Vinny said to the boy.
I'm Vinny, and this is my sister Mandy.
The stranger wore only a short white skirt, tied with a sash around his waist. Suddenly, Vinny looked down at himself. That's all he was wearing too. Vinny's face turned red. Mandy was also dressed differently. Her body was covered by a straight white dress. Her feet were in sandals. Her hair was in a long braid.
But I saw you fall from the sky,
said the boy, getting back up on his feet.
We have special powers.
She paused and looked at Vinny. He was still holding the photograph, which he stuck inside a sash. The stranger gasped and fell to his knees again.
Don't worry, we're not going to hurt you,
Mandy said kindly.
We need your help.
I am Akom,
the boy said,
and I promise to help you.
Thank you, Akom,
said Mandy. They heard voices coming toward them from the distance. Vinny and Mandy froze.
Oh, those are my friends,
Akom explained. He held up an odd-shaped ball in his hand.
I left them to look for my ball. Then I saw you.
Vinny and Mandy looked at each other.
Please don't tell them about us,
Akom.
Akom.
They both said. Akom nodded.
Yes, it would be best for you to hide. My friends are not accustomed to strangers.
The loud shouts came nearer.
Akom, are you looking for cobras again?
Shouted one boy.
Cobras?
Whispered Vinny. Vinny hated snakes even more than spiders.
Cobras, hippos, crocodiles, they're all over the Nile.
Akom whispered back.
Crocodiles?
Vinny mouthed, his eyes getting very big.
Akom, where are you?
The voices shouted again. Akom threw the ball back to his friends. Then he signaled to Vinny and Mandy.
Quickly, follow me!
Vinny and Mandy ran after him. Out of breath, they arrived at a small house with windows high up on the walls. Its white surface had many cracks from the hot sun.
Welcome to my home,
Akom said warmly.
Photo Travels, Ancient Egypt. Episode 4, Akom's Home and the Village Market.
Akom took his new friends through his home. To Mandy and Vinny, the one-room house seemed quite empty. Then he led them up the stairs to the roof. The roof was flat and square, just like the house. It had straw mats, a wooden chest, and baskets filled with fruits and grains.
There are more things here on the roof than inside the house,
Mandy commented.
During the hot season, we sleep and eat up here,
He explained.
Why?
Asked Vinny.
It's very hot inside the house. On the roof, it's much cooler,
Akom explained.
What a lovely house,
Said Mandy. Akom bowed proudly.
My father, brothers, and I made all the bricks ourselves.
How?
Asked Mandy. Ackham brought over a pan.
In this pan, we mix mud from the Nile River with straw and stones. We shape the mixture into bricks. Then we take them out into the sun to dry.
Ackham held out a basket.
Are you hungry? Would you like some dates?
Thank you.
Mandy replied. She bit into the dark, soft fruit.
What other foods do you eat?
Asked Vinny, taking another date.
Mostly bread. Oh no!
Ackham cried, looking up at the sun.
What's the matter?
Asked Mandy.
I must take lunch to my father and brother.
Ackham grabbed a small basket. He filled it with bread, figs, and dates.
We'll come with you,
Said Vinny.
We must hurry.
Gasped Ackham.
My brother has to eat before removing the organs.
Puzzled, Vinny and Mandy said together.
Organs?
They just received a new dead body today.
Ackham said, nodding.
Today, Tao, my brother, will embalm his first body.
Embalm?
Vinny repeated.
That means preparing a dead body to make it into a mummy,
Explained Mandy. She had read about this in one of her books.
Mummies?
Vinny's eyes got big.
Cool!
He ran after Ackham. Mandy had no choice but to follow them. Ackham and Vinny raced through the village market. Mandy followed, but soon stopped to catch her breath. The outdoor market was crowded. All kinds of things, fruits, vegetables, spices, pottery, wigs, and jewelry, were displayed on mats and stools. Curious and no longer afraid, Mandy wandered more slowly down the street. She saw a woman trade a cucumber for a small bag of spices. Another man traded a sack of grain for a skinny cow. Smiling, Mandy stopped at a fruit stall.
What's this?
Mandy picked up a large red fruit. She had never seen anything like it before. It was bigger than an apple. The skin felt like an orange.
How many do you want?
The fruit seller barked at Mandy. She was so startled that she dropped the fruit. It rolled down the road. The skinny cow that was being led away stomped on it. Red juice burst everywhere.
My cow is bleeding. You sold me a sick cow.
The owner yelled at the merchant. The two men started to argue loudly.
You better pay for my fruit.
The fruit seller shouted at Mandy. Mandy was in big trouble.
Photo Travels, Ancient Egypt. Episode 5, Making a Mummy.
Racing past the market, Vinny followed Ackham down some stairs. The chamber below was cool, and the air smelled strange.
Stay right here and wait for me,
Ackham whispered. Ackham left to look for his father.
We're going to see a real mummy, Mandy!
Cried Vinny. He turned around to speak to Mandy, but Mandy was nowhere to be seen. In a panic, Vinny left his spot and walked down a dark hallway. He needed Ackham to help find his sister. When he heard voices coming from a room, he looked in. 3 men were standing over a body on a flat table. One of the older men spoke to the youngest person. Vinny guessed this must be Ackham's brother, Tao.
Tao, please explain what we are going to do.
Tao replied.
First, we will remove the organs.
He gulped.
Then, we put them in the clay jars.
He pointed to the jars standing against the wall.
Then what do we do with the natron?
The man pointed to a large jar. It was filled with white powder that looked like salt.
Put it inside and outside the body,
replied Tao.
Why?
The man asked.
so the body won't spoil while it dries up.
explained Tao.
When can we wrap it in linen bandages?
Asked the man. Tao swallowed before answering.
In 40 days, Father.
Whoa.
Vinny said under his breath.
So that's how to make a mummy.
Suddenly, a cold hand touched his arm.
What are you doing here?
Ackham whispered angrily. He pulled Vinny away from the room. When they were in the hallway, Vinny told him about losing Mandy.
We have to find her,
He said urgently.
Let's go then.
Ackham said.
When you grow up, do you have to learn that too?
Vinny asked, pointing behind him.
Yes, I must.
Replied Ackham.
My father is an embalmer, so my brothers and I will be embalmers too.
Vinny was glad his dad was an architect. Meanwhile, at the village market, Mandy was wishing she had followed Vinny. The fruit seller tried to grab her. Near her, several men walked in a long line. Each carried a large bundle of long green sticks on their backs. Mandy ran into their line, hidden by the men and their bundles.
Stop! Thief!
Yelled the old man.
I'm very sorry.
Mandy called back. But she walked with the men and their reeds, hidden from her pursuer. The man in front of her laughed.
What did you steal?
Nothing.
She replied. She changed the subject.
What are you carrying?
Papyrus reeds, of course.
He answered.
We're going to the workshop now.
What do you make with papyrus?
Mandy asked. The man looked at her strangely.
Papyrus is used to make paper and other things. Surely you know that.
He said. She quickly responded.
I mean, what are you going to make with that papyrus?
Come join us and see,
said the friendly man.
Photo Travels, Ancient Egypt. Episode 6, Making Papyrus.
Mandy was now on her own adventure. In the papyrus workshop, groups of men were making different things. Mandy saw a young boy make a ball like Ackham's. Another person worked on a pair of sandals.
These reeds are for making paper.
The friendly man explained. He took a long reed from his bundle.
First, you cut the reeds to make them shorter. Then, you strip off the green skin.
The inside of the papyrus was white. The man used a knife to cut it into thin sheets.
You can do this part.
He said to Mandy.
Just put these sheets on this block.
He explained. Mandy sat down in front of the block.
Cover the papyrus with this cloth.
He continued. He gave Mandy a hammer.
Now, beat the cloth evenly.
She gently hit the papyrus sheets.
This is amazing.
She exclaimed. Nodding, the man said.
Papyrus is a gift from the gods.
She lifted the cloth. The papyrus still felt thick and rough.
After the papyrus dries,
the man explained,
we will use this to make the surface smoother.
He picked up a shiny stone.
It's time to go, Isa,
said another man, motioning to his friend.
Where are you going?
Mandy asked.
We must take the papyrus rope to the pyramid.
Isa replied. He pointed to coils of thick rope. Mandy had almost forgotten her brother and the glowing pyramid.
Can I come with you?
She asked her new friend. Shaking his head, Isa said,
That is no place for a young girl. You shouldn't even be here.
I promise not to get in the way.
She begged. Isa gave in.
But you must stay in the boat,
he warned. Suddenly, Mandy missed Vinny.
Come on, Vinny,
she said in her mind.
The glowing pyramid is where we both want to go.
She hoped her brother was thinking the same thing. Meanwhile, Vinny and Ackham walked back to the market.
I don't see her anywhere,
cried Vinny.
Where did she go?
Asked Ackham. Vinny thought for a moment.
Wait!
He pulled out the photograph. The pyramid was now glowing blue.
Great, Amon-Re!
Ackham shouted when he saw the photo.
Don't worry,
Comforted Vinny.
it's just a photo.
A what?
Ackham opened one eye.
Never mind.
Said Vinny.
I think Mandy may be going there.
He pointed to the pyramid.
Do you know where this is?
Ackham cautiously studied the picture and shuddered.
Yes, it is the Pharaoh's tomb along the Nile.
Can you take me there?
Asked Vinny. Ackham did not answer.
Please, Ackham, I must find my sister.
Begged Vinny. Ackham finally agreed.
But we must be very careful because it is forbidden.
Photo Travels, Ancient Egypt. Episode 7, The Pyramid.
The boys looked for a way to get to the Pharaoh's pyramid.
There!
Ackham pointed.
We can sail to the Pharaoh's pyramid in that boat.
It looks like half a banana.
Laughed Vinny, describing the large sailing ship.
No, that small one.
Corrected Ackham. The big boat was pulling a smaller one. Men were loading baskets onto the smaller boat.
Someone special must be going to visit the site,
said Ackham.
How do you know?
Asked Vinny.
All those baskets are food,
explained Ackham.
They only prepared that much food for the royal family. They must be going for a visit to the pyramid.
Let's jump on,
said Vinny. The boys snuck into the small boat and hid among the food baskets. In the larger boat, 20 men picked up their long oars. They pushed and pulled the oars. The wind filled the gigantic sail and the small boat followed. The boys sailed down the Nile. From the boat, Vinny could see all kinds of interesting things offshore. A farmer pushed a wooden plow through a field of wheat. Another large ship sailed beside them. It carried a huge white block of stone.
What's that?
He whispered to Ackham.
That's one of the blocks used for building a pyramid.
Ackham answered.
Pyramids are made of hundreds of heavy blocks of stone.
That must take a lot of time and work,
said Vinny.
Some say we make more stones than there are stars,
explained Ackham.
Thousands of people work on the Pharaoh's pyramid. They started to build it before I was born.
When will it be finished?
Vinny asked in a surprised voice. Ackham shrugged.
Perhaps in a couple of years. Maybe by the time I marry.
Suddenly, Vinny saw a pair of blinking eyes staring from the water.
Ackham, is that a crocodile?
Vinny pointed. Ackham shook his head.
No, that's a hippo. Look, there's a crocodile.
Ackham pointed to a reptile lying in the sand. Further on the shore, they could see the Pharaoh's pyramid. The boat slowed down. Men shouted orders at each other.
When we reach the shore, run for the pyramid,
Ackham instructed. When the boys jumped off the boat, Vinny was surprised by the sight of the pyramid in real life.
Whoa,
he said as he stopped to look up at the huge structure. Facing the sunset, the pyramid looked very majestic. Each side of its base was the length of 2 soccer fields. Though it seemed already quite tall, the workers were adding more blocks. Vinny saw thousands of men pulling the heavy white blocks of stone. The boys climbed a ramp that led into the pyramid. Behind them, a voice shouted,
You boys, stop! What are you doing here?
The guards!
yelled Ackham.
Run, Vinny, run!
The boys ran up a ramp toward the pyramid. The guards followed closely behind.
Photo Travels, Ancient Egypt. Episode 8, The Way Home.
The boys were small and fast. They lost the guards before they entered the pyramid. Inside, Vinny followed Ackham through a long, narrow passage that led to a chamber. Inside the chamber, Vinny stopped and stared. The walls were covered with paintings and symbols.
Who is that body with a dog's head?
Vinny pointed to a painted figure.
That is Anubis, the guardian of the dead.
Ackham replied.
Pharaoh must prove to Anubis and the other gods that he has lived a good life. Only then will he be able to rest peacefully after he dies.
Ackham explained.
This is one of the false burial chambers that leads to another passage. You must pass several passages and chambers. Finally, you come to the secret chamber filled with gold and jewels. The secret chamber is where the pharaoh will be buried.
But we can't go there today,
said Vinny anxiously.
We have to find my sister.
Ackham led Vinny to the other side of the pyramid. When the boys left the pyramid, they saw a small boat pulling up to the shore. Several men leaped out, dragging a long papyrus rope toward the pyramid. Mandy was the only one left in the boat. She stood up to admire the pyramid.
Mandy!
Suddenly, Mandy heard her brother's voice. She looked for him on the crowded shore. Just then, the loud noise of horns began to sound. It came from the grandest ship in the river.
It's the pharaoh,
whispered Ackham. He fell to his knees. Everyone at the pyramid site stopped and fell to their knees. Only Vinny remained standing.
Get on your knees,
Ackham whispered. But Vinny wanted a good view of the pharaoh. The pharaoh appeared. He wore a blue and gold headdress and held a golden staff. Suddenly, the pharaoh stopped. He stared at the one small standing figure. When the pharaoh lifted his staff, 3 armed guards ran toward Vinny.
Vinny!
Mandy yelled.
Quickly, get into the boat!
The guards were close, but the boys managed to jump into the boat. Ackham and Vinny grabbed the oars.
I'm so glad to see you,
Mandy cried.
Me too,
gasped Vinny. As they paddled away, Mandy looked up at the pyramid again.
Do you think this is the pyramid in our picture?
She asked. Vinny pulled out the photo. The pyramid now appeared in a glowing red light.
This must be it,
exclaimed Mandy.
And look, we're in a boat too, just like the old man in the picture.
but there is an eagle in this picture,
Vinny pointed out.
That's my name,
Ackham said.
Ackham means eagle.
Suddenly, the sky turned very bright. The children were forced to shut their eyes. Ackham's voice began to fade.
We're going home. Goodbye, Ackham,
Mandy shouted. Vinny and Mandy fell into a dark tunnel once again. Then, with a loud thump, the children fell onto the hard attic floor. Opening his eyes, Vinny cried.
We're back home!
Vinny, Mandy, time for lunch.
They heard their mother calling them. They stared at each other in confusion. Mandy looked at her watch. It was almost 12 noon, the exact time they had left for Egypt.